ability of the brain to change.
Brain kind of changes based on the environment.
I think that sounds right. Okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Angela and welcome to the brand new LCC Podcast. I'm your host as we will dive into cool conversations with awesome guests. So be excited because we're going to talk about different and interesting topics. So let's go. And we have a very special guest, professional guest in the psychology area, and coming from com major, I'm not very aware how things work in psychology department. So yeah, we're gonna touch some important and cool topics, and maybe you can introduce yourself.
Certainly. My name is David Nyenhuis. I'm an associate professor of psychology here. In a previous life, I was a neuropsychologist. I worked as a neuropsychologist in the States, and I came here a couple of years ago.
So, I came across a really interesting term, and as a com major, I don't know, I didn't know what was that. So, the term neuroplasticity. For me, it was something unknown, till it's a bit much unknown term, but I feel like by doing a research, some kind of a research, I've realized that it somehow helps us as students studying abroad. So what if you can explain what is neuroplasticity, and yeah.
Okay. Neuroplasticity is a very broad, it's becoming a very broad term. When it was first starting to be used, it really looked at change in the brain, the ability of the brain to change, and to change physically, to change synaptically. And that change is brought upon by experiences specific to that person. So early on, neuroplasticity, I think it started because they looked at young children who had significant brain damage at birth, and they were very surprised at these children's ability to learn, to speak, and so forth, because the parts of their brain that usually are associated with language were missing. And yet the brain was able to adapt, and they were able to speak, and their language skills were able to develop much more than they thought would be possible.
So can I say in the term that brain somehow in this term becomes a bit functions better than it was before, and based on the environment that the person is, the brain kind of changes based on the environment and based on the experience.
That's right. Yeah. And most of the time, that would be too broad. Many times that is a change for the positive. But it depends on the experience. Okay, theoretically, you can have experiences that cause the brain to change, and it may not be in a positive direction. But most of the studies have looked at neuroplasticity in regard to positive changes.
Touching that topic about positive changes and environment, why I wanted to discuss about this topic, because what I researched on internet, not ChatGPT, but at least
that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good place at least to research something, to find some ideas.
Yes.
So I came across this term because I was researching about studying abroad and how it helps us to become better version of ourselves, to become better problem solvers and critical thinkers. So I came across this idea that actually our brains start functioning better once we adjust ourselves in a completely different environment, an intercultural environment like LCC community. Here there's a lot of cultures that are different from yours, and I think when you kind of immerse yourself in this culture, your brain starts functioning in a way that helps you to adjust to an environment better. Does it sound right?
I think that sounds right. Okay. And I think that comes out of this idea that education, use of our brain, causes our brain to change in a positive way. And so, for example, people who have more education are at lower risk for Alzheimer's disease. And people who learn a second language are less have lower risk of Alzheimer's disease. And so it seems like when we're using our brain, the brain changes in some way, in a positive way. And I would put this in that same category. Okay, when you have to leave your culture and go to a culture and a language, a different place where you have to change how you act, where you have to think more about what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and so forth. That's work. That's work for your brain. And I think that the research showing that it assists in being able to learn a new language. It assists in critical thinking skills. It also, of course, assists you in terms of your cultural awareness, in your cultural skill set. All of those things can be associated with going to an international school and going and studying abroad, studying in a place where you aren't as comfortable.
Hello everyone, so this is going to be a very short break from the podcast, and we're currently located in the fair area where the reception is, and of course you can come to reception anytime you have any questions related to classes, classrooms, keys and wherever. So right now we're going to ask one of our students from LCC a very interesting question related to the topic of the podcast, and so let's ask. Hello.
Hello.
Is it fine if we ask a question? Yeah, so I have this interesting question. Maybe you don't know, maybe you know. Do you know what is neuroplasticity?
I don't really know, but I assume it means the ability for the brain to be like flexible and learn things.
I would say it's very similar to what the definition itself is. It is, I'm also not a psychology major, so I would say that it is somehow helps our brain function better. And also, do you know that studying abroad somehow boosts our brains? And that's the definition of neuroplasticity, as I understood. We have a podcast, LCC Podcast, and the pilot episode will be about neuroplasticity. So if you want, you can follow us and watch the podcast and get more understanding of what neuroplasticity is. Thank you. It was a really quick question. Thank you so much. I can certainly see that, because I think as a student also studying abroad for about 3 years already, I can kind of bring my experience and my example as a somehow study, for example.
Wonderful. What would be really interesting as a neuroscientist would be to see, well, what has changed? What has changed in your brain? If you are placed in a functional MRI machine, would they notice that your brain is processing information differently? That would be very cool.
Can I also bring this as an example? Not example, but what I have noticed that changed in me is that I used to panic a lot in a way when I was, for example, I'm traveling to a new country and I'm alone. Of course, I would be totally panicking most of the time because I'm alone. I don't have internet to use Google Maps, for example, and I don't know how to navigate myself. I think before coming here, I would panic 24/7. I would never know what to do. I would be totally scared. I would say I'm not going to go travel alone because it's very scary, and I would not know how to do everything on my own. I think what I've noticed now, I take everything very easily in my life. Back then, I was so scared about everything that connected to me doing everything on my own. I realize now that by traveling from one country to another and living here, I don't panic. If I see a problem, I don't immediately panic. I don't call to my mom saying and start crying, as I always do. But I feel like I kind of start thinking what I can do that would solve the problem without telling to anyone else. So I actually see the improvements in my brain, how I function.
Okay, so if I would... Those are positive changes.
Yes.
I don't know if that's neuroplasticity.
Okay.
I think that you've obviously had a great experience, and you are more adept at this new and exciting environment. But I don't know, and you're calmer because of it. Now, whether or not the brain is physically changing, I don't know. I think we would have to study that more.
Okay, but you said that whoever knows the culture that kind of studies more than one language, they have somehow a bit better percentages of being more healthier than
They are better at new languages. They are better at doing cognitive tasks. And people are surmising that means that their brain has changed in some way. I think we have to do more work on the brain side yet to find out what those changes are. And it could be that your experience emotionally has also caused a physical change, but we just don't know that yet.
Yes, we will find out that.
It's something for the future.
About it.
Yeah.
Great, and I had this somehow question related to learning languages also. I might say something controversial, but not controversial, just a question out of curiosity. So, because most of the people that come from Western countries, such as US, Canada, teenagers mostly, or the students, they do not learn the second languages. For them, it's mostly English. And for us, as coming from second or third world countries, from the very beginning, we were used to learning, besides, for example, for me, it was Armenian, also Russian and English. So now I know 3 languages. And when I see people coming from US, mostly from Western countries, knowing one language, I have this hypothesis. So does it mean that us coming from third world countries, such as Armenia or Soviet, post-Soviet countries, we somehow are better at learning things and being more physically healthier than, as you said, or it's
well, coming from the U.S., I'm not sure of that, but I would say that we talk a lot in psychology about critical periods. Okay, we talk about the fact that there are periods in especially a child's life that they are especially adept at learning something.
Yeah.
And I think that you started very young with multiple languages, whereas I didn't take my first language classes until high school. Okay, and by then it was too late. So yes, the answer is you are much better at languages than I am.
I didn't mean that.
But I really think I think it's because you started at such a young age, and there are more programs now in the United States actually,
yes,
where they have these immersion programs, Spanish especially, for children in elementary school, where their entire day in school is in Spanish. And we want to get as good as Europeans, I think, in terms of our abilities to learn language.
I'm pretty sure in educational level, no one can top US, of course.
I don't know about that.
Okay. I had this question. With the rise of technology, like VR, those glasses that you can see the not the real world, but the visual world, another world, reality, not the. I got confused. It's
yes.
Not
I
the
know
reality.
what you're talking
yes,
about.
Yes, I don't know how
visual,
to explain
the visual reality, or
visual reality
okay.
somehow. And how is technology influencing neuroplasticity? Do you see is it influencing in a negative way, or?
I think the potential with technology is always, it can be negative and it can be positive. I think that if taking visual or the VR off the table a bit, just how we are so screen focused now. And not only that, we are more focused on very brief interactions. Okay, I think that has the potential to change our brain. It has the potential to lower our ability for sustained attention. Okay, so certainly we are not, I don't think, as good at sustained attention as we used to be.
Yeah.
Whether or not, again, that's associated with specific changes, adaptations in the brain because of those experiences, I don't know. So it can be negative. On the other hand, technology that assists us in our learning capabilities, new things, yes, that can be a very positive thing too.
I think that's it. I'm very thankful that we were able to talk.
It's been fun.
It was fun. I honestly, I am trying, because LCC is a liberal arts university here. We, besides our major classes, we also study different areas, different fields. And for this new year, my resolution was to try to learn as much as I can from LCC, and also to improve my knowledge about different fields. And I think because of this podcast, which was very useful, I learned what was neuroplasticity. So yeah, thank you very much for joining the new LCC Friend podcast.
The first.
Yes.
Wow.
You are the first.
What a pleasure.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. I hope you will love the podcast and wait for the new episodes for the podcast later on. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our pilot episode of the new Fresh LCC podcast. I'm really happy that you watched it, and I hope that you loved the idea and the topic, neuroplasticity. We hope that it was very educational and knowledgeable for all of you. So if you want more episodes, follow our YouTube channel of LCC International University, and our next guest will be Alexandra Smolar, and we'll be talking about the topic of public speaking.